Well, good morning everybody, welcome back to another video. So this morning I'm clearly office based and I'm going to do a little video tutorial. Now I've done these before, these processing tutorials, but this one is a little bit different in that the image that I'm going to process is one that's never been shown before. It's never seen the light of day. Now last weekend I went out with a friend of mine to do some photography in a non-filming capacity. I was just wanting to enjoy the day and just relax and just get into the art of seeing. Now, typically on that day, I found two of my probably favourite images this year, and that's why I wanted to share this one with you today. It's very typically me. It's another intimate scene, a close up, and it's the sort of images that really make me tick, let's say. I get quite excited when I find those really great ones, and this one for me is a really lovely shot. Whether it can be termed as being really great, probably not great, that's probably stretching it a little bit far, but it's a really nice image nonetheless. So first of all, I'm just going to put a couple of quick pictures up that was taken with my phone. The first one just shows the camera in position, pointing down at the ground, and I'll try and zoom in a little bit, but down on the floor there's an oak leaf and it's fallen on a stone, and this stone's got some lovely coppery or iron deposits on top of it that just go really well beautifully with the colour of the leaf. And the second shot, you can see I've moved the camera slightly in a better position, and what I've done there is I've just, as I've mentioned in videos before, I'm just ensuring that the centre plane is directly in parallel to the leaf so that I don't have to worry too much about depth of field. Having said that, I'm still shooting at f/19 just to get as much as I can. But let's put the image on screen now and you can have a look at it. So here is the shot. As you can see, it's not an entire leaf, it's a segment of a leaf, and the reason I went for that is because it's more dynamic. It really hits you when you see it, and of course the vein structure is more apparent at this viewing range, whereas when you zoom out and you include the whole leaf, you have to start really going in close to see all that fine detail. Whereas the shot as a standard print, you can see all the leaf structure as it is. And the other reason was, which is probably the most important reason, when you zoom out and included the whole leaf, there was starting to get distracting elements that were causing problems and difficulties to deal with. So this was the composition that I arrived at. I still haven't decided yet whether to go for this landscape orientation or whether to go for portrait. The image actually looks quite nice in either. The one thing I will just point out is, of course, just down here you will see one remaining distracting element, and this is a little bit of shale that's fallen from the bank above. That's just a little bit unfortunate, really. For the sake of this video, I am going to remove that later, just to show just how fantastic this new AI generative fill is that that Photoshop has available to it. Currently I'm in Lightroom, which is where I do all my main processing, and I just do the final tweaks in Photoshop. So let's look at the images. You can see here we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So this is actually a stack of 8 images. The reason there's so many is because it was a nice shot. I was really pleased with what I found. I wanted to do a focus stack, and I wanted to ensure that I had every little ounce of detail. So I probably went a little bit overboard in terms of choosing the different locations where to sharpen the lens up and take each shot. So what I've probably got here is more than enough. So I'm going to start by selecting them all. You can see at the bottom right here I've got auto sync selected, which basically means that whatever adjustment I make to this first one on the left hand side will happen to all the others. Just move my screen a little bit, it's just reflecting some light for me. So the first thing I always do, you can see in the histogram above that the blue channel is clipping ever so slightly there. So I'm going to raise the blacks. It didn't need much at all. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to press the Alt key on the Mac, and I'm just going to see where the blacks start to block out, and of course you can see there all that colour coming in, which means that I just need to take it back until that disappears, which is about there. Now the whites is something I don't normally play around with, and I'll show you why. If I again select the Alt key, and bring that up so the whites start to clip there, and then bring it back just to that point there. Now, to me, the image has taken on almost a false appearance, and for some reason we're told to bring the whites back to that position, but I always find it a little bit garish, let's say. And this might be the reason why a lot of people say that I have a particular processing style that looks very, very unique to me. I prefer to just dial that back, so I'm keeping the whites really quite low. And I'm doing this on the hoof. As I said, this is the first time this image has been seen, and I've never actually processed it, so I'm not trying to replicate anything I've done before. Now that, to me, isn't a million miles away from where I would want it, but I am just going to try a couple of things just to see if it improves any. First thing I would normally do is I would just bring the exposure up. I don't think it needs much, if any. One thing that I'm interested to see if I can do anything with is where you've got the damp section on this rusty coloured part of the rock here, you've got the dry part here and the wet part here. I'm thinking that I would like to bring this more into line with this, and I don't know, I'm no expert, and I'm not 100% sure whether I can achieve that. And I'm going to go to the shadows, which I suppose you could argue that is could be classed as a shadow even though it's not, and bring that up. Now that has definitely had an effect, so I'm going to leave that there and just bring the exposure down just a tad. So I'm really happy with that as it is, and there's not a lot else I want to do with it. I will just try, just out of curiosity, a linear gradient just over that portion. Bring that out a little bit. That certainly helped. So I'm also going to add to this a radial gradient. Now, often radial gradients are to draw your attention to a particular part of the image, and with many of mine it's just something that's centered around the center. But what I'm going to try here is a gradient that focuses on this diagonal portion just here. I want to bring that out, and I want to bring that right out and that up, so it's not overly apparent, it's very subtle. Invert the selection so it is just affecting that portion. My feather is probably going to be quite a lot actually, and then just bringing the exposure down ever so slightly. Now let's just move that down a little bit. I think that's probably where I want it to be. Now I'm really happy with that, really happy indeed with that. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to export all these into Photoshop, and we're going to do the focus stack. So edit in, open as layers in Photoshop, and that should quickly take us over there and start putting the layers in the layers palette. So there we have all the layers together. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select them all. Now the chances are that all these will be perfectly aligned, but I'm not taking any risks. So I'll go to edit and auto align layers, select the auto projection and just click OK and wait for that to do its stuff. So that's now done its auto alignment. What I'm going to do as my safety net is I'm going to drag all these layers down and create copies of them. Then I'm going to turn those copies off. They're just there for safety, just in case when these bottom ones, the originals, are stacked together, there are parts of the image that I don't agree with in terms of how it's stacked it together. And what I can do is I can go into this palette and I can just choose the bit that I want and and put that back in the image by using the brush tool. So now that they're all nicely aligned and we've got copies of them, I'm going to go to auto blend the layer, which is going to stack all the images together, and just press OK for that and let it get on with it. Again, it takes a couple of minutes. So that's that now done. What I just want to draw your attention to here is if I just go to 100% and go to one of the top edges, I just want to show you what can happen. It's not overly apparent on this image, but there's just a little patch here, and see if I can find any more. There's a little patch there, and there's a line, definitely a line running down here. You can see that. Now that's where the focus breathing of the lens has occurred. You can see a definite line there, and I need to remove that. I could reclone it all, but it's a lot of extra work and I don't really need it. So I'll just fit that back to screen. I'm going to grab my crop tool and I'm just going to pull that in on all the corners just to remove any issues with those edges. Now I have to say it's not very apparent on this shot, and some images where there's lots of detail on the edges it's very clear that there's a problem. So I'll just double click that and that will crop that out nicely. So there we've got the final stacked image. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to look around to see if there's any really apparent soft issues that I need to be concerned about, whether those extra layers in the layers palette are needed or not. And as I look around, everything looks exactly as it needs to be. So I actually don't need them, so I'm just going to go back to them now. I'm just going to select all these copies and delete them. Drag them into the bin there, and you can see all the layers on the right hand side with the various bits removed to ensure that the entire image is perfectly sharp throughout. What we're actually looking at here is this particular one. If I just turn that off, you can see there, if I just toggle these on and off, you can see the various bits where Photoshop has decided that there was sharp areas that needed keeping and soft areas that needed to be removed. So turn that merge layer back on, and there we have the finished image. Now what I would normally do at this stage is I would normally go around at 100% and look for anything that I don't like, that I just need to get rid of. And there are a couple of things that are apparent, one being this here. Just go to 100% on that. That looks like a stamen off some flower or something like that. And then of course we've got a wing of something here, which is most unusual. I'm going to leave that in. We've got these little bits of crystallized rock here, which I will probably get rid of. And this one, which is the one I was talking about, the main offending article. And we're going to deal with that first. So I'm just going to grab the lasso tool and I'm just going to draw around it. Nice and easy. And here we've got the generative fill option, and I'm going to click that, and rather than type anything into there, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to click generate, and what Photoshop will do is it will look at the surroundings of the selection, and it will fill them in accordingly with what there is around it. So that's done a pretty decent job, and if you see down here we've got 1 to 3, so I've got 3 options available to me, and I can pick any one of them. Probably not that one, probably not that one. I quite like that one because the veins continue to run down in a natural way. So let's leave that at that. Fit screen, and then we'll deal with this one here now, which is very quickly. And with this I'm just going to use the remove tool, increase the size. Actually I just need to flatten the image first, don't I? Of course, flatten the image, which is, you could leave it as layers and just work on the top merge layer, but I don't need all those layers now, so I'm just going to draw over that, get rid of that, and then pull out and see if there are anything else that I find a little bit distracting. So that's that one there, a little bit of a spot there, one there. And this might seem extreme to some people, but I like the images to be as good as they possibly can be, and these little things are not adding any value to the overall scene, and they are just things that the eye will pick up on when the image is displayed, especially if it's printed large. That little section there, some crystals there, that can go, as can that. Now there is one other offending article, and I don't know whether any of you have seen it yet. Like I said, I'm going to leave that in. It's this here. Now then, can generative fill do anything with this? I'm actually alright with it, if I'm honest, but I'm just going to see what it can do. And if it goes successfully, I'll leave it out. It could be a tricky one, this, because it's right up against the leaf edge, but I've every confidence. Yep, it's done a perfect job, so I'm going to leave that like that, and I'm going to flatten the layer again. And there we have the finished shot. Really, really lovely. Really pleased with that. So there we have the final completed image. All that's left to do now is to sharpen it up. Now, I wouldn't normally sharpen my images at this stage. I'd normally save them in my catalogue as a TIFF file for future use, and then just bring them out and sharpen them accordingly to the size that's needed for any particular use. But for the purpose of this video, I'm going to sharpen it for the video and do it exactly as I would as you see it in my films. Now, first thing I do is I reduce the image size to 4000 along the longest edge. Don't know why I go for 4000, just seems to work really well for me. And it's this resolution that I use when you see the video, the images panning across the screen. So for sharpening, I always use the high pass filter, and the first thing I need to do is to create a duplicate of that layer, because this is going to form the high pass filter. So I go to filter, other, high pass filter. The radius is normally between 1 and 2, but I'm going to go for 1.5 on this occasion and click OK. I now go back to the layers palette and choose soft light. You could go for hard light, but I find that's just a bit too much. I find soft light is just nice and subtle. So once that's done, I would then export this to my video editor, and this would form the basis of my close-up shot that you see in the films. For the next one, when you see the full image on screen, I reduce this to 1080 because that fits the timeline that I currently use. I'm not using 4K at the moment, I'm still using 1080, and I'm quite happy with the results that I'm getting. So I click OK. I leave the sharpening exactly as it is, because it seems to work for me with that. I don't resharpen it according to the size I used to, but I don't anymore, and I would now export that into my video timeline. Lastly is the border that I usually put round it, and that's very, very easy to do. I go to image, canvas size, change pixels to inches, and I'll go for 1 inch in this instance and click OK, and fit screen. So that's put that round nicely. All that I need to do now is to get it back to the right size for my timeline in my video editor, is to put it back to 1080 because it's increased in size. We're having the border around it, so it's 1080 on the highest edge, and click OK. And there we have the completed image. I import this into my timeline, and this is the final shot that you see. I'm really pleased with how this has come out. It didn't need a lot of work, it was very minimal, didn't take long to do, and it's very typical of the amount of work that I do on my images. Because I'm not the world's best at processing, I keep it very, very simple, but often the results are quite effective. So I'm going to finish it there. I'm going to put the images on just now, but as always, if you've enjoyed the video, don't forget to give it a nice big thumbs up. Leave some comments below, let me know what you think of the image, and also what you think of this type of video and whether it's been useful to you at all. As always, don't forget to subscribe, and I will leave it there. So thank you all so much for watching. I will see you in the next one. Bye for now.